Hey guys, this is GameCow. Welcome back to Touhou, the Genius of Sapphiros. Last time we beat up Anastasis and we actually didn't go back and talk to Akio about stuff because, well, she probably has material stuff for us now. As, Lady Anastasis has been defeated. You don't get anything for defeating the maids, so yeah, don't bother going back after stage 18, but you can definitely go back now and we can get some stuff. But beyond that, we are going to spend this episode, once we've taken a quick look at these things, and I'll explain how this kind of works as well, because we do get more character weapons and stuff here, but we're not going to be able to make most of these. But yeah, the way that this is going to work is I'm basically going to be getting all of Satori stuff set up here. So we did do a part about Satori after the Netherworld, and that was great and all. Oops, I skipped one of the things there. Oh well, it was one of the character specific armors, and we also get level 4 rings for strength, endurance, dexterity, etc. So we get more stuff here as well, which is good. But I don't think we've had most of these drop, except the muscle belt, which is really good, and that we could definitely make some stuff out of. But yeah, we already did an episode on how Satori's learning works, but we now need to kind of gear up Satori for her other side of stuff, because we've really only been using support, the support-based stuff we've been using has basically been restricted to heals, and Satori can do so much more than that. So we're basically going to go ahead and show how the other skills are obtained, and yeah, discuss the challenges, I guess, there of how to get them, because they're not the easiest of things to collect. And we're just going to go around getting some of the other miscellaneous skills that would be, nice to get, but not mandatory. Just, I want to show off as many of the different skills as I can, and now that we've hit level 50, we can get basically every skill that Satori could learn so far in the game. We can actually go back and get now. So, with that said, let's take a look at some new stuff here. So, if you for some reason have an Orichalcum spare and you want to spend 2 water crystals, this weapon's pretty cool. It's a pretty high power weapon. 136 is really strong for just now. The Kusanagi is at 165, but remember that takes so many more materials to make that you'd expect that. But yeah, 136 is pretty good. The accuracy's not too terrible for a sword at this point, and it gives you basically immunity to water, or near immunity to water, as near as you could possibly get, and you add 30% damage to your attacks. Once again, water added damage here means that if the enemy is weak to water, you will do more damage. If the enemy is immune to water, you will do no additional damage, but you still do the raw damage of the weapon. So this weapon is basically 30% stronger than it looks, and then it's based on what the enemy is weak to. It's actually really, really strong. There's some very nice weapons we can make later that take advantage of element stuff and become even more powerful than the Kusanagi. This is not really one of them though, this weird thing that's basically impossible to pronounce. It isn't really impossible, it's just something I'm not even going to attempt. You get a lot more fire damage out of it. Again, it takes Orichalcum though, that's the problem with these, this tier of stuff, and this weapon also takes up stuff that way. We will make this eventually. Obviously I can't make it just now because I don't have enough stuff, but assuming I end up doing post-game stuff, we will make this eventually, because this weapon is really useful for one particular fight in post-game, and yeah, that's a thing we could do. Anyway, we saw new items, both weapons and armor we have for the characters now, specifically, and these take a brand new material to make. So far, the first 6 tiers of weapon have been made using the character-specific material, like donation box in this case, in varying numbers. Tier 7 and in post-game the Tier 8 weapon will require legendary materials, so like super synthesis materials that we can't make right now. We have no access to these materials and at this current stage. We will do before the end of the game, but we aren't quite there yet. But you can see that this is significantly more powerful than the previous weapon. You know, it's a good 20, almost 20% more accurate too. And yeah, a lot more attack power, both physical and magic. It's got that brilliant death resistance, which is good. It doesn't have the magic exorcism, which is a bit weird, but it enhances your spirit and amulet damage even further. So this is, of course, a fantastic weapon for Reimu to have. All of these weapons are going to be really good, as you would expect. And yeah, this is what Marissa's final tier broom stuff tends to do. Rather than give you more bombs, it increases the amount of damage your Master Sparks do, which is super good, let me tell you. You'll probably need to give her a bomb at that point, you know, like a bomb accessory. But enhancing spark damage is amazing. She will actually get a spark that you can use without bombs as well, that just makes that even better. So then we have Sanai's weapon, which actually inflicts toxic, which is pretty cool, and it gives you full immunity to paralysis. So with this and her armor, you can have basically immunity to death, removal, and paralysis in one go, as well as virtual immunity to poison, because your poison damage stuff goes down to 90%. You'll see that all of these weapons have exorcism on them, except for the magic casting ones. Although I think Patchouli's should have exorcism on it, but you know, all of the weapons that could do physical stuff will have exorcism traits. So that is, divine barriers become much less of an issue when you have your final tier gears. For Aya, you see this is a lot more accurate than the one that we made before, and multi-target is a thing that it can do, so a third of the time your regular attacks will hit all enemies, which is not bad when you consider that Aya's growth tree has, let me get this right, her growth tree has the ability to daze enemies with her physical attacks. A bit like Alice and her trait stuff, you can daze with physicals, so yeah, except Alice's is on the weapon rather than her skill tree, but it does the same thing. So multi-targeting there is pretty good. But you can see, of course, I haven't really mentioned it yet, these weapons also take Orichalcum to make. So you're not going to be making very many of these, even if you do luck out and get the gear. And we'll go into how that's done when we get to the stage. For Sakuya, this weapon is again significantly more accurate than the previous one, although not quite as much as everybody else's, but it is a water-based weapon. So you have water damage with this, and you can freeze enemies quite a lot as well, so high-speed Sakuya is really nice with this weapon. She loses her exorcism traits, but don't think that she's getting any weaker, because remember, although we don't have an added, you know, percent number here, so I don't know exactly how much it adds, do remember that, like I said with the Blizzard Edge, added damage for water is incredibly, like, powerful here. We're basically adding a large percentage onto Sakuya's damage here, so even without Slayers, she becomes exceptionally powerful. And of course she has full exorcism, so there is that too. For Patchouli over here, we have death resistance, which is pretty cool, and she also increases her mystic and void damage too. Now void damage isn't going to happen very often unless you're doing physical attacks, so that bit can kind of be ignored. Mystic also isn't going to happen too often, but Philosopher's Stone, if you decide to use it for some reason, is a mystic attack, and I believe Big Bang, her last word, is non-elemental, so Void Enhance would actually power that up, so that's kinda cool. And of course she still has the magic exorcism like before, and the weapon is a decent bit more accurate and has a relatively decent magic attack, but staff weapons will still be more powerful on the magic attack front. So really this comes down to, do you want to use a shield and be a bit resistant to death, and be a bit slower. Yeah, it's a thing. Shade High Power is actually pretty good too though, because you have more slaying. It's another high accuracy weapon, so finally Satori gets a much better, accuracy stuff. That 50 accuracy more is great. So yeah, you don't have any multi-target stuff, but you do slay Transcendence as well as Warrior Magician, and I believe the firepower of that Slayer effect is higher than normal, as it, with better slaying would suggest. I think the Slayer does more damage, because Slayers are not constant. It's not like, oh, you do 50% more damage, or you do whatever. It's dependent on what is actually slaying. What weapon is slaying. So like Sakuya's weapons slay for about 225% damage, so more than 3 times damage basically gets added, or 3 times damage from regular stuff. Whereas somebody like Marissa's I think might only be about 50%, so yeah, on her growth tree stuff. So it depends on the source for what your Slayers are like, and that's a thing for it. So the Kamikaze agrees that you basically mean to stun, which is quite nice, and they don't get any more accurate because Alice's weapon is set accuracy, so yeah, but you do have more physical attack, obviously, so if you're using Alice for attacking stuff, that is pretty good. Then we have the Lolicon Eye, which is a weird one to say. This weapon has a hidden effect that it doesn't actually state here, as you would expect from a hidden effect, but basically this weapon also inflicts charm on the enemies with its physical attacks. So not only do you get a big enhancement on void damage, which is your physical attacking types, you get to inflict charm with them as well. So stuff like Gale Sword, which can multi-target as a physical thing, can actually do some pretty good status effect stuff with this, and Satori doesn't really have a way of charming other than this, so that's pretty neat in its own right. But of course you do lose the resistance factors of stuff like the Force Eye or the Beholder Eye nulling magic damage and stuff. So you have to weigh the pros and cons, but I think it's a pretty decent weapon, and the status inflicting rate is good with Satori and her high induction. Then you've got Yomu's sword, which actually has less exorcism than the previous weapon, and a lot less accuracy as well. Yomu's kind of the buck the trend character here, but having said that, her previous weapon just was very accurate, so there is that. But she can do instant death with her attacks on this, and that's like all of her attacks, so it's not bad. It isn't something I would make until you can upgrade it though, personally, unless you just don't really have a choice, And then we have the God Hand over here, which is amazing. I actually have this on my other file that I managed to get the Hinatori wing when I was first playing this game, and let me tell you, this weapon is super good. 2 reasons for it. Apart from just the crit chance is amazing, there's no status on it anymore, but that crit rate is ridiculous. It's Moko's 7th and 8th tier weapons actually unlock a special skill if you max out the growth tree. So I haven't been maxing it because Soulfinger is not super amazing. Like, it's a high power single target move, so it's decent, and we might end up using it at some point soon, but if you have her final tier weapons, you get access to a much stronger version of it, which I actually forget exactly what it's called right now, but it literally does several thousand damage, ignoring shields, and basically being impossible to get around. It's ridiculous. So this weapon is super amazing. Then we have Byakuran's weapon, which is actually really good now. So I've said that Byakuran's weapons haven't been too great after the tier 4 one because they don't have magic barrier as well as physical. They only have physical barrier. But this one is ridiculous. Magic Exorcism probably isn't going to matter too much because Byakuran doesn't attack too often, but it is nice if you're going up against Great Demon or one of the angel monsters, because they have a lot of Divine Barrier obviously, so that gets annoying. But Byakuran gets 35% Divine Barrier is just crazy, and Magic Reflect as well. That, yeah, really good. If you can make this, definitely make it. It is an amazing weapon, and it only gets better when you upgrade it too. I think you end up with 40% Divine Barrier, I think. It's either 40 or 50, and it's just insane. Like, that is cutting a huge amount of damage that Byakuran would take otherwise, and you can obviously use resistance gear to cut that even further. Stupid good. Then we had armors as well, so the characters all got new, final tier armors, or final for the main game anyway. So Marissa gets a complete nullification to silence, which is really good, and mystic damage goes up. Bombs +1's a little bit low, to be honest. I'd have liked to have had +2, but it's still really solid when you consider the Broom gives you Master Spark damage, which needs bombs, so that's always nice. And then we have the Violet Robe for Patchouli, which has, again, bombs +1, pretty decent. Tons of magic defense, and that kind of coincides with Patchouli in general, so she doesn't take a lot of damage from magic. It's very easy to have like 120 plus magic defense on Patchouli, it's pretty cool. And she gets to reflect magic 15% of the time as well. So this is definitely something worth looking into. And then Satori for rounding out the lightweight stuff. Bombs +3 is amazing if you're using bomb skills, and we will get a couple of bomb skills in this part. This part's going to run on super long, but oh well. This is what happens when you have more gear to look at. 15 induction's pretty good as well, and immunity to confusion doesn't matter too often, but when it does matter, it's great to have around. So yeah, another decent armor. Over 100 defense as well. It's the tankiest lightweight armor that you can make, which is cool. Then we have the Hakure Robe over here, I suppose. Bombs and lives +2 is really good. Bombs +2 especially, because Reimu's bombs in her growth trees are kind of hard to reach. So you do definitely want to make this if you can. Because barriers are very good, but also 75% resistance to light. Even if you don't max her light affected tree, like her light power tree, then you could still have virtual immunity to light with this thing, which is solid, and her resistance goes up quite a bit as well. Then where is it? Yeah, this is just a Moira robe. We have, yep, immunity to death and removal, which is really good. Bombs +3 is great, because Sanai's best skills take up 1 or 2 bombs for a lot of stuff. Her best heal definitely takes up 2 bombs, and that can get expensive to deal with. So lives +3 is, no, not lives, bombs +3 is great. Lives +1 doesn't matter too much, because you shouldn't be relying on that stuff too often, but it's neat, I guess, if your Sanai keeps getting targeted down. So there is that. And then it was the Raven armor, which gives you immunity to stun. That's quite good, so Tail Chop can't actually hit you away. And Bombs +1's a bit low, but you know, especially considering Aya does have a lot of bomb using skills, but the armor comes with 30 evasion, which is nice, so it balances out fairly well. Then we have Natori with a pretty solid 10% perfect dodge. I think this actually has more, so it's a bit weaker on the perfect dodge front, but immunity to blind is great. Magic defense on a physical, attacker is pretty good, and of course chaser damage up a ton, so if you are able to use Natori's chasers, this is a really good armor to have. Unfortunately, her armors don't come with any more bombs. That's probably the only disadvantage, is that Natori doesn't get too many bombs to play with, so you need to be careful with that stuff. And then, speaking on bombs, you get +2 with Byakuran's one. This armor's pretty decent, but it's not something I would make over the weapon if I had the choice. because sure, immunity to petrify is really good, magic evade is quite nice, but the weapon's got the same amount of magic reflect, and reflect is obviously going to be better than evade. And bombs plus 2 is decent, but Byakuran doesn't use bombs too often, and I would rather have the extra divine barrier and stuff like that, so it's a good armor, but I'm pretty sure you can get by without having to have it. And then, where else are we at? We are at this one here for Sakuya. Multi-strike is pretty cool. I think that just gives her like 10% chance to do multiple attacks, which is kind of nice. And having extra bombs and lives, yeah, Sakuya gets a lot of bombs anyway, so this is not the most important armor to make, but it does offer a lot of defense, so it's pretty good. I'd make the weapon first though, myself. And then, where else? We had 7 colored doll, I guess. Lives plus 3 on Alice is kind of funny, to be honest, but this offers a bazillion physical defense compared to everything else. I think this is the highest defense armor in the game that way, at least in terms of character stuff. And 30 magic defense is really solid. Resistance is pretty nice too, and immunity to paralysis, like Sane's weapon, is really nice. So yeah, pretty decent. I would probably make this over the weapon first, just because I like being able to use sword or the rune axe on Alice. But yeah, it's a solid thing to have around, and extra little legions are always beneficial. Then, where are we at? I think it's Legendary Fencer, right, for Yomu. This is really, really good. You want this armor if you can make it. Physical defense is solid, nothing else on it, which is a bit of a shame, but hey, physical attacker, what'd you expect? Strike rate is good, counter rate, I still don't know exactly how that all works, but I'm guessing that's maybe got something to do with the physical deflect stuff that we've been seeing, because I don't know how else Yomu would be deflecting physical attacks right now. But the main reason you want this is because it has 3 bombs on it, and Yomu's bomb skills are super strong, so the more times you can use them, the better. And that is really all you want. It's just a ton of bombs. Speaking on bombs, we have +1, which is a bit low really, but +1 from Moko's armor, which is, yeah, a bit low, but the breath damage reduction is quite good. You could combine this with the Dragon Shield, and that is my alarm stuff for food, so heck yeah. Yeah, the bomb breath damage reduction is nice. Lives plus 3 is kind of pointless because Moko's got a bazillion lives anyway, so this isn't the top priority to make, but if you are desperate for bombs on Moko, then you can still make it. So, yeah. Alright, well, awkward pauses aside for food. Food is important, you should always have food. So, just in case the part of this is going to be cut out, I don't know, it's going to be a while before I even edit this, so yeah, Moko stuff. 175 defense is pretty solid. The bomb +1 is a bit low, unfortunately, because, you know, Moko uses a whole ton of bombs, but if you need that bomb, this is pretty much the only way you're gonna get it. Otherwise, I would normally consider one of the other armors over this one if I could. The weapon is definitely what you should make with the Hinatori wing, should you pick one up. So, yeah, I mean, if you can afford to make this somehow, then you've been grinding far too much in the main game, but obviously post-game wise, this would be a pretty good precursor to make, and yeah, it's solid, just it's not a primary target here. You have to choose your stuff wisely, so yeah. Then, we haven't actually got access to all of this stuff yet. Of course, we don't have the strength ring free, so we can't make this at the moment, but 15 strength points is incredible. This is going to make Sakuya ridiculously strong if we do manage to get this. I think it can go up to like 60-70 attack points this thing gives later on. It's amazing. But Obviously we have one for each of the core stats here, so plus 15 points into everything. Potential plus 15 is really good actually if you are looking for a crit rate thing for Yomu. So this is something I need to consider later. Of course all of these, just like the previous items, they all take trapezohedron as well. The muscle belt is really good though, 150 HP instead of just a regular 100. That is, again, super strong. And if I had a trapezohedron, I would be making this so quickly right now, because imagine that on Patchouli, 150 extra HP, pretty great. And yeah, the magic ring 80 MP is really good too. Quick thing to note with these items is that they will enhance your stats, obviously that's fine, but because they are made from enemy drops, the magic ring 3 is something you find from an enemy, not from a chest, you can then go back and find the same item again from an enemy. So it is actually possible to have both Muscle Belt 3 and 4. This is a bit different from the Protective Choker, Wage Choker, stuff like that. You can't have 3 and 4 of this because the item is from a chest, and the chest will not refill. So yeah, that's a bit of a problem for these ones, but not for the Nimble Wisdom Ring stuff. So that means you can have Rage Choker 4, Rage Choker 2 and 1 if you want to, but you can have Strength Ring 3 and 4 as well for multiple physical attackers in the same party, or in separate parties, as we may see later on as well. So that, I think, is indeed everything that we can make at the moment. I may as well make the Adamantite whilst I'm here, because we did get an extra drop last time, so... or, you know, last time we did fight stuff, 2 parts ago by now. And looking at the way this is set up, this is unfortunately gonna most likely be its own sort of part 0.5 here. So, hey, I guess that... that's just the way things go, because I didn't realize there was gonna be all the tier 7 stuff for discussion as well. So... yeah, that's going to be a separate part, and now I suppose we have to go ahead and do some proper learning stuff. So for that, let's head to stage 14. We'll start with these ones because there are 2 enemies that we can, or 2 skills from the same enemy we can get here. So yeah, on to separate video stuff.